These billionaires are pathetic, but that's not really a surprise, we already knew all this. But in the past week, and the past month especially, the online right's been extra whiny about the most inconsequential things you can imagine. Hi, I'm Austin. You're doing your best right now. And today we're going to talk about the online discussion revolving around if the word cisgender is a slur. Right off the bat, I want to put a small trigger warning for transphobic content, so if you don't want to see that, please turn away from the video. And for anybody not familiar, the word cisgender at a basic level just means you identify as the same gender that you were assigned at birth. So let's jump into the drama. It all started when this outwardly transphobic guy on Twitter named James tweeted about being harassed by trans activists. Yesterday, after posting a tweet saying I reject the word cis and don't wish to be called it, I received a slew of messages from trans activists calling me sissy and telling me I'm cis whether or not I like it. Just imagine if the roles were reversed. It's such a joke because just saying imagine if the roles were reversed is obviously laughable to pretty much any person with a normal brain. Because you don't have to look very far to find transphobes doxing and sending death threats to pretty much any LGBTQ person online. Acting like being called cis or sissy is offensive after admitting to tweeting something purposely offensive is the exact type of snowflake shit that these types of guys always accuse people on the left of. And so this tweet blew up because Elon Musk decided to reply to it with an even stupider take. Repeated targeted harassment against any account will cause the harassing accounts to receive, at minimum, temporary suspensions. The word cis or cisgender are considered slurs on this platform. Clearly this doesn't make any sense because even if you just Google the word cisgender, you'd find that it's clearly defined in the actual dictionary. Like, how do you argue with that? The term is widely used in academic and social settings to describe gender identity. You can't reinvent a term that society's already defined. Nobody before this moment has ever seen the word cisgender as discriminatory, nor has it ever actually been used in real life to discriminate against anyone. But this move from Elon's not a huge surprise if you've been following his trail of L's over the past year, with numerous genius moves leading to Twitter losing more than half its value since he's purchased it, and his transphobic takes leading to his own family disowning and divorcing him. Things aren't looking good for Twitter now, especially because advertisers don't want to go anywhere near the platform where blue check freaks are leading the discussion. And so following Elon's reply to pretty much the most punchable guy you've ever seen, everybody across the internet weighed in with equally bad opinions. Here's some of the worst ones. Cis is an ideological language, signifying belief in the unfalsifiable concept of gender identity. You have a perfect right to believe in unprovable essences that may or may not match the sexed body, but the rest of us have a right to disagree and to refuse to adopt your jargon. Cis is just a word. Like, I don't know why these self-described smart people act like it's a far-out concept when it's just a word used to describe an identity. You can't reject being called cis if society calls you that, because then society would call you trans, and you hate trans people. So it all loops back to classic TERF behavior that we've seen before, because they don't believe that trans women are real women or trans men are real men. In real life, this is just a small minority of extremely annoying, loud freaks online that spend all their time making all the noise. So if you are trans, obviously be safe, but know that a majority of people do believe that you have rights and you should exist. Speaking of loud, annoying weirdos online, a bunch of them forced Wikipedia to actually shut down the page for cisgender because they were trying to edit it from the actual accepted definition. I mean, most of the general cis is a slur Twitter takes are just along the lines of being offended because they just refuse to learn anything new. Like, I'm pretty sure online conservatives haven't gotten mad at the word heterosexual yet just because they either can't pronounce it or they don't understand it because it's too big of a word. Cis is a slur, and you're committing hate speech every time you don't use my pronouns. I'm a man, you bigots. It's hard to tell if this tweet's even being serious because of how bad the memes are. Cis is a slur. Women are not cisgender. Cis women, cis anything. Women are not a subset of their own sex class. That's misogyny. Thinking adding cis to the front of women is misogyny is so funny because if you hate all the mental gymnastics, just call trans women women. But they refuse to do that. Instead, they start transvestigation Twitter accounts and start tweeting about how Ellen DeGeneres is actually Ethan DeGeneres based on their face structure and measurements and how they walk. It's actual freak behavior. Feel free to use. Cisgender means you have a gender that corresponds to your sex assigned to you at birth. This is offensive because 1. Our sex is not assigned. That imparts a godlike power on your doctor. The doctor does not choose your sex. Your sex is observed. A doctor cannot change your sex. Saying we have a gender is to impose on people a set of narrow-minded gender stereotypes and to claim those are now your identity. It is demeaning. We are so much more than that. Gender labels are an attempt to lock you in a social caste system. They're limits on who you are. I am a woman because I'm an adult human female. That is my age, species, and sex. What I am is finite. Who I am is infinite. I reject all gender labels. Saying the idea of gender is to impose narrow-minded gender stereotypes is one of the dumbest takes I've ever heard in my life. Like, it's entirely true, and that's why transgender means not conforming to narrow-minded gender stereotypes. But it's completely hypocritical to use that as a defense of cisgender being a slur and then still cling on to the narrow-minded gender stereotypes that have historically defined women and females, and then still act like it's not a gender label. These people are doing a Cirque du Soleil level of mental gymnastics. Especially freaks like Matt Walsh, who tried to start this whole narrative that the person who coined the term cisgender is a P word, which is easily proven false if you just Google the history of the word.
Cisgender will be considered slurs on Twitter. Going forward, Musk said anyone who uses either of those words as part of a coordinated harassment campaign risks suspension on the platform. Now, if you didn't graduate from a liberal arts college in the last 6 years or so, if you're not fortunate enough to not to receive regular lectures from your employer's HR department, what you just heard is probably sort of incomprehensible. It might as well be another language because it basically is.
Just assuming your audience is too dumb to understand a new word just coming into society.
But the unfortunate reality is that for most Americans, the words cis and cisgender are now all over the place. Even if you're somehow insulated from this insanity, your kids probably aren't.
The unfortunate reality of a word existing.
These words are presented as scientific terms with real medically established meanings.
This word is scientific. It's medical even. That's so scary.
And all this happened, or seemed to happen, very suddenly. I mean, nobody could define cis or cisgender until just a few years ago. You take a look at a chart of Google Trends, you'll notice that until around 2014, nobody on the planet had any interest in searching the internet for the word cisgender. And then, all of a sudden, there was a huge spike, and interest has only increased since then. This isn't a phenomenon that we can just ignore, as tempting as that might be. So where does this come from?
It's interesting how the right has pretty much stifled any growth in LGBTQ voices or mass movement across the country until this point where social media has proliferated and allowed people to find out about new identities and become aware of new ideas. It's not the hardest thing to understand.
The word cisgender, which by the way simply means a normal person who identifies as the sex that they are. That's what cisgender is. If you're accused of being cisgender, what they're saying is, oh, you're normal.
Matt Walsh is probably the least normal person on this planet. Man doesn't know anything about being normal. So we don't actually have to watch the rest of this video. You can just tell that the way they talk about trans people and trying to paint them as groomers is just pure projection when people like Matt Walsh are selling children's toys with their own heads on them through their website to profit off of. That's the groomer behavior, Matt Walsh. You are a massive freak. Luckily, the balance of the online debate was heavily in favor of the cis is not a slur side, because most of the internet's not random bot accounts farming engagement from hate speech and bad takes. Like even the Babylon Bee, which is a bad parody of The Onion, made fun of the cis is a slur thing.
Hey bro, what do you think of my new vest? Pretty sweet, right?
Honestly, bro, it's so cis.
So it's like a parody of the mid-2000s Stop Saying Gay PSA campaign on TVs that ran.
Is that a bad thing?
Hey guys, you know, you really shouldn't say that.
What?
Saying something is cisgendered when you mean it's bad, it's insulting. Cis people are real and they have feelings. What if every time something was bad, everybody said, that's so gay?
Oh man, I used to call everything gay in high school. Tamagotchi, Smash Mouth, that kid Kenny, who actually turned out gay. I guess I see what you mean.
Don't let the bullies get you down, cisgendered man. And remember, it gets better.
So I think they're trying to say that calling things cis isn't really offensive, but they're doing it by comparing it to how people used to call things gay to be offensive, when really for these people it wasn't in their eyes back then. But they do frame the guy that admits to calling everything gay as the one that's wrong.
When you say that's cis, do you think about what you're saying? Knock it off.
And then the last few frames of the video mock straight guys and Elon Musk, but they do it from the perspective that using cis hetero language is bad. It's all extremely confusing considering every one of their sketches is also just adults in their 30s acting willfully stupid because they know their audience will just sort of put the pieces together of how it makes sense on their end. Like in this other tweet from them, they roast Matt Walsh for getting worked up over calling cis a slur. Matt Walsh claims he was assaulted with cis slur at Subway by drag queen attackers shouting, "This is Pride Country." Like, it's not funny, but maybe they just hate Matt Walsh and Elon Musk, which is great. Same here. And that was a majority of what the bad takes looked like. Luckily, most of the internet was level-headed and came back with a wave of non-freakish behavior. Like Cori Bush, a congresswoman from St. Louis, she said, "Cisgender is not a slur. It's a term used in scientific, legal, medical, and everyday contexts. The attempt to make cis a slur is a blatant attempt to erase trans identities from a supposed free speech absolutist. Trans people exist, cis people exist." And Cori Bush generally always has good takes on policy like this, and she's a good person to follow if you don't like following politics. Just a reminder, especially since that dumb F idiot called Elon Musk decided to make cis and cisgender a slur on Twitter. Cisgender people think cis is a slur because they use trans as a slur. Yeah, pretty much. They don't see trans women as real women or trans men as real men, so whenever they do use the word trans, they know they're using it in a derogatory way. Saying cis is a slur is again just pure projection, and this is typical of every single thing the online right accuses people of. You know what? F it. Let's get rid of cis. Everyone's either trans or not trans. Trans is now considered the default. You're welcome. Yeah, if transphobes don't want to act like trans people exist, then let's just change the norm and instead force everybody to identify as a non-trans woman or a non-trans man. They're all just scared that if you use the word cis around kids, it's going to be enough to make them not want to fall under the obvious rigid gender constructs that society's been built around. If you're offended by being called cis and think it's a slur, holy shit, you have the biggest victim complex I've ever seen. Of course it comes with effing rightoids. Stop complaining about scientific terms and trans people and be a better person. Yeah.
Too easy.
So that was the recent Twitter drama around if cis is a slur. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was it stupid? Do you think it is a slur? If so, how did you make it this far in the video? Surely it's a complete waste of time for these people online, but they always find a way to get mad about a random beer company or candy or homophobic chicken or movie or Target or literally anything. So I don't know, what's next? Are they gonna find a way to make the submarine thing woke? Jesus, these people are too far gone.